The first thing you should consider when starting a course in Schoology is your folder organization. Before we talk about how to add folders, I want to show some examples of different ways that you can use folders to keep your course organized and easy for your students to locate your materials. Let's take a look at Mrs. Hoschel's arrangement. So she creates large folders for her unit, and then within there she'll have folders for each individual lesson essential question. Notice that she titles the big folder Unit 1 and the concept of that unit, so in this case the American Dream, and then she has each LEQ as well as the LEQ actually written out so that students can see, oh, this is where I'm learning how a reader can recognize and apply the strategies of definition. Within this folder she has folders for individual days, so you can see that day 1 included materials that were housed in Schoology, and day 5 also did, but the days 2 through 4 probably were hard copy materials that weren't housed in Schoology. Notice too that she's using the color coding feature in Schoology, so that everything except for this Friday date is blue in Unit 1 to keep it all kind of looking similar across a unit. But that in Unit 2, everything for the majority is red. So you can also view materials and folders by clicking on the link next to the folder, and then I can click into the LEQ1 folder and click into the Day 8 folder. So that's kind of the workflow that her students would follow in order to access the material for each day. Lindsay Teets uses a similar organization for U.S. history, but she has some differences in hers. So she still has a overall unit folder, but then from there she goes into concept folder and day folders. Now what's interesting about hers is she includes the topic of each day. So day 1 was the inventions day, day 2 was the growth and transformation day. So what's great for her class is her students would be able to go, oh, I didn't quite understand growth and transformation, and they would know exactly what folder to go back into. Or if a student was absent, Lindsay could say, oh, you missed our discussion on robber barons. Go into the day 4 folder, and that would be super easy for her kids to locate. So that's 2 academic examples. Let's take a look at Stephanie Foster's CNAP materials. So she has folders, again, that seem to be unit-based, such as Intro to Cybersecurity, and then she has folders in there based off of the chapter that students are reading in their textbook. And here are all of the assignments associated with that chapter. So if your class follows a textbook, then maybe a course organization like this might work well for you. So there are some examples to think about. How do I want to organize my Schoology course? Now to create those folders, we would go into a Schoology course where you actually want to start building information, and we would say add materials, add folder. This title is where you would give your unit a title, so I might say Unit 1. And then here are the color options for the folder if you want to follow a color coding system like Lindsay Teets or Lindsay Hoschel. So I'll select red for this. And now I have a red Unit 1 folder. Now at this point, if I want to add things into this folder, I can't just add materials and add an assignment, because watch what will happen. Oops. So if I add materials, add assignment, without first clicking into the folder, it won't go into the folder. It'll go below the folder. If I make a mistake like this, I can go to the gear on the right and I can say move, and I can move it into my Unit 1 folder. But I can avoid that hassle by first clicking into the folder. Now I can add another folder if I wanted to. Okay. So now this Concept 1 folder is within the Unit 1 folder. If I want to do any edits to my folder, I can go over to the right, click on the gear, go to Edit. So, oops, I forgot to make it red. I can select red, I can hit Save Changes, and now I have a red folder. I can continue that way. So if I wanted to create a Day 1 folder, I could click into the Concept 1 folder and create a new folder called Day 1. From here, this is probably where I'd start making individual assignments, and we'll talk more later about all of the different types of assignments that you can provide students in Schoology. But this might be like Day 1 warm up. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of Schoology folders. So what I'd like you to do now is to go into a Schoology course where you want to start playing around and creating materials for your students, and start creating a folder structure for yourself. Think about, how do I want to organize it? Do I want to organize it by day? Do I want to organize it by chapter? And if you're creating things and you don't want your students to see what you're creating, you can always go over to the gear on the right-hand side and select Unpublish. That will hide everything you're creating from your kids, so you can just kind of work in private at the moment. So go ahead, start creating a folder structure for yourself.